and welcome to TNC Radio.live. This is the Truckers Network Radio Show. And now here's your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNC Radio.live, where we offer the news, weather, traffic, information, entertainment, and sports that our commercial drivers want. Doing stunts in big rigs is something most drivers can only dream of. Mike Ryan has broken major records with his daredevil stunts and racing ability. You've seen his truck stunts in movies like Marvel's Venom, The Fate of the Furious, Jurassic World, The Expendables, Last Man Standing, Terminator 2, and many others. Mike is the first driver in the United States to ever drift a semi. His truck racing includes all kinds of terrain, like driving bobtail on hairpin turns up Pikes Peak to a height of 14,000 feet. He's raced short-track stock cars and SCCA events and raced hill climbs and the Bonneville Salt Flats in semis. If it has wheels, Mike says he'll jump, roll, pipe, T-bone, sidewind, slide, spin, ramp-to-ramp, jump, cannonball, jackknife a semi, or just wreck the heck out of it. Mike has had hundreds of jobs on his resume to prove it. He set speed records at Pikes Peak, Mount Washington, Queenstown, New Zealand, all over the place, running over 225 miles per hour in a 23,000-pound Freightliner. That was one of his records. And he set a Guinness World Record, jumping a semi over 83 feet over a Lotus Formula One race car as they drove full speed. It was amazing. Mike calls it one of his dream stunts. We have Mike with us today. This is so exciting. Thank you, Mike, for being with us.
Wow, thank you for that introduction. I've never heard anything so good.
Well, I appreciate that. My burning question is, were you inspired by Evel Knievel? Or did you dream of doing this stuff as a kid and tell your parents about it?
Well, to answer the first question, yes, Evel Knievel is what an icon he was to, grow up in those days and see. And I actually got to go to one of the events. So yes, he definitely was an icon and a hero, and somebody that I didn't really know that there was stunt people growing up. I was born in San Diego, raised in Eastern Tennessee in a place called Oak Ridge, and didn't get to California until my junior year in high school. So I was pretty convinced that, Burt Reynolds did all of his own stunts. And, to see things like Smokey and the Bandit, I just thought, gosh, if I could get paid to do what I would spend my weekly paycheck doing on the weekends, if I could get paid to do that stuff during the week, wouldn't that be great? And I met a stunt coordinator when I was about 19 years old. And so my first movie was called Joyride to Nowhere. And that may be the title of my book. Who knows?
So what kind of training does it take? I would imagine it's a lot of trial and error, and you don't want to have a whole lot of errors when you're doing some of this stuff.
Well, there's a handful of schools that will teach you a 3-day course on stunt driving. That's kind of like doing a 3-day course on being a brain surgeon. It doesn't really get you very far. There's a lot more to know about it. But I grew up racing go-karts and jalopy stuff, circle track, Tennessee good old boy kind of things, and motorcycles. And that's what got the interest of the stunt coordinator that I had met, is that I was a young guy with some pretty well-developed driving talents and racing skills. I've since gone to many, many race training programs, Bob Bondurant's and things like that. But really our industry, because everybody wants to do it for whatever reason they want to do it, and their perception is so often so different from what the reality of the job is. We've had people say, well, I've had 27 speeding tickets. I'm a perfect stunt guy. And I'm going, and I want you on my set? Really? You sound like a liability to me. We have to, these are big companies, Universal and NBC Universal is a monster multi-billion-dollar company. The last thing they want is a bunch of yahoos on their payroll that are going to get them involved in lawsuits and stuff. So it's a pretty scientific step-by-step approach that we have to take in order to survive the kind of things that we try to portray that we're doing, if I'm saying that right.
Sure. So, what did you start doing stunts in? It wasn't trucks to begin with. Am I correct?
No, I mostly cars. That kind of was my bread and butter. Bought my house for me, just being a car guy. And since I had grown up on racetracks, I got recognized as a race car kind of driver or a guy that had skills on the track. And there weren't that many stunt guys in our business here in LA that had the level of racing experience that I had. So that really helped continue to open the door for me. The problem with driving is everybody has a driver's license in their wallet. And if you were to ask a room full of people, I don't care when or where or why there's a room full, who in here is a good driver, and 90% of the people will raise their hand because that's their opinion of their skill set.
Sure.
And they may be right, but they may not be right in the film world when you're really driving for camera. And I often use the analogy of there's lots of different kinds of fighters in the world, all the martial arts people and boxers, but one can't really do the other one's job very well, or I don't think. So we have our own discipline that we have to follow, and we're driving for camera. So understanding how cameras work and the shots that the director wants, and how this is all going to get cut together is really the science of it. Because at the end of the day, there are only a handful of things that you can do in a car, right? It goes left, it goes right, it stops, it accelerates, it corners. Sure. And, cars don't do very many things. But they do some thrilling things.
Oh, yeah. And I would imagine when you're doing these stunts, you have to do them hopefully in the first take or not very many takes, right?
Well, the evolution of the process when a stunt coordinator and second unit director, so that second unit is where the majority of all the vehicle stunts are done in a film. We don't really work on a big film. You don't really work with the acting unit or the fight unit. They kind of separate us, and we each do our own thing, and then the editors put all that together. But when we're first handed a script and it says, usually it'll say something like, "and the chase begins," and so we have to figure out what this chase means. So the first thing is, what are the available locations, and how many sort of organic stunts can we do in this environment? Are there hills or bridges or things to jump from and land on? And so once you kind of get an idea of what the environment provides, then you embellish on that. Figure out who the bad guys are and the good guys, and then the other guys, and you begin to just step by step create a chase sequence. And some of these things are pretty cheap, pretty repeatable, so you can rehearse and get your best shot. And some of them are very complicated and very expensive. If you've got some unique vehicle, you think about all the James Bond Aston Martins, those are pretty expensive cars, so they're not really throwaways. Even though Aston Martin provides those vehicles as a product placement, it still costs somebody something, and those are typically prototypes or engineering test mules that they can't sell to the public anyhow. So with all the Fast and Furious films we do, Dodge is one of the big sponsors. So there's usually plenty of Dodge somethings, whatever it may be, per the story. And, we try to get as most as we can out of these vehicles. So you don't really do the big jump on the first day. You want to do all the smaller stuff and build up to that, so that if you did total it, at least you got a lot of use out of it.
There's a lot of scientific analysis that goes into all of this. I don't think people think about that.
I don't think so either. I have a very close friend that's an accident reconstruction engineer, fully degreed guy that is the guy that goes in a courtroom and testifies when they're trying to solve a vehicle accident. And Ed has some amazing computer software that can figure out speed and angle and trajectory, what the mass is, angle of impact, where it's most likely going to go if it impacted at this many degrees, this way or that way. And so when I'm figuring out, I've got some pretty good ideas myself, and I've been trained by some pretty amazing folks and had great mentors coming up through this business. And so I'm often Ed and I are usually pretty close to each other. But you mentioned my semi-truck jump. He helped me figure all of that out. We knew what the speed was. We knew what the ramp angle was, the weight of the truck, the velocity of the truck. We took all this stuff into account. I did not take into account well enough the impact that I took as a driver in the vehicle. So the vehicle has the first impact in a crash, but then the occupants typically have the second impact with the vehicle. And I cracked 3 vertebrae in my lumbar and 3 in my neck. And I just last year had 3 discs replaced in my neck with titanium from these compression fractures. So the seat bottomed out on me, and I had a semi-truck seat base, your typical air ride seat base. And I put my Butler custom built for me NASCAR racing seat on that seat base. And then by using bungee cords, suspended the seat. I had it guided on a couple of tubes so that it could go up and down just like a regular air ride seat does. But as part of the roll cage, I had it built into the structure, and I had it suspended on bungee cords. I was wearing a really tight vest that Cirque du Soleil type people use when they're doing all the rope work and wire work and all that fancy flying through the sky stuff. I had me suspended from the cage. But, if you took my weight of 200 pounds, the weight of all my gear and the seat and all of that, probably 275 altogether. And the amount of G-force impact that I experienced when that truck came down, that's where it took out my neck and my back because the seat bottomed. In retrospect, if I had my own air supply into that seat base, when I was able to increase the pressure a lot, I might have been okay. But the fact that I trusted the truck air supply to provide whatever regular air ride seat PSI is, that was my downfall. So I did that jump in 2014, and I'm still paying for it and probably will for the rest of my life.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. People don't think about all of that, too. There's definitely, even with a professional, you've got elements of danger there. It's awful that you were injured, but you're still able to do what you love, which is so important. We have to go to break here, Mike. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with record-setting truck stunt driver Mike Ryan. Stay tuned for more coming up. TNCRadio.live is proud to carry the Steve Summers Overnight Drive Show. TNCRadio.live is dedicated to commercial drivers. We offer the news, traffic, and weather you need, and the entertainment, sports, talk, music, and celebrity interviews you want to hear 24/7. We have original shows and trucker podcasts that feature some of your favorites, like Ice Road Alex Debogorski and America's Truckin' Sweetheart Marcia Campbell. TNCRadio.live is convenient and designed for professional drivers. The best part is we're free, and you can listen anywhere you are on the road. With just one tap, you can tune into Steve Summers and us right on your phone. Simply download our app by going to app.tncradio.live. That's app.tncradio.live. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live with Shelley Johnson and Tom Kelly. We're talking with truck stunt driver Mike Ryan, who set world records. He's got some amazing stories. Tom, you said you had a couple questions for Mike.
Yeah, Mike, during the introduction, first of all, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. When Shelley did the introduction, she mentioned Terminator 2 and that T2 chase scene on the LA River. Now, in all the movies combined, what do you think? Probably 50, 60 movies have at least used the LA River for some scene or another.
At least. And by the way, thank you for having me here, Tom. It's an honor.
but Mike, that T2 chase scene down the LA River and the crashing of the truck coming over the side there and then chasing, I think it's the best chase scene ever done on the LA. And there's a lot of them to choose from, but I still get excited. I mean, how long ago was that? Like 30 years ago now? And it's still an exciting, fun-filled romp, if you will. I mean, it was an amazing piece of work.
Well, thank you. I agree. It was actually the film that it's kind of like you talk about musicians being a one-hit wonder. Well, that was my one-hit wonder. That was the film that put me on the map as a truck specialist. And so I'm so thankful to a man named Gary Davis, who was our second unit director. And Gary came up with those ideas, or is responsible for many of them. And so, and a lot of it was just cutting edge stuff that nobody had seen before. Usually it was just bad trucker, like in Duel, where there weren't really any stunts in Duel to speak of, truck stunts per se. It was just the truck chases the car chases the truck, they try to pass each other, and that's about it until the end. But so to begin with, when the truck went into the river, that was by tow and release. So nobody could survive that amount of impact. It's just, all the mathematicians that we get involved, they said it's not survivable. So, and it was pretty obvious to see the wreck, after that was done. But anyhow, once that part was over, most of the chasing and the crashing, smashing into other cars and stuff, was by a guy that's been gone for about 10 years now, named Tommy Huff, who's been a phenomenal mentor to me and an amazing guy to work with. There were three of us that did all the truck stunts. I've kind of built a reputation as being a precision driver, because I did a lot of commercials for car manufacturers where, that logo needs to come up to the center lens and you don't want to see the nose dip and all that stuff. So to do the technical kind of things. So I rear-ended the kid on the dirt bike. So rubbing my front tire or my front bumper into his tire. Which wasn't hard to do. It was a cab over Freightliner. The roof was cut off completely. There was no windshield. I could actually lean out and look down and see by inch my bumper contact his tire. And of course the bike was being towed. So the front tire was on the towed vehicle. So that way nobody could fall off. It was all pretty stable, but we got the shot, and that's what's important. And of course, having the rider, a stunt rider, the stunt double for the actor, survive unscathed, that was pretty important. And then I think I did the front tire blows out. Arnold shoots the shotgun at the front tire. It blows out. The truck goes sideways, and then it gets impaled under this bridge that's crossing over the river. So I threw the truck sideways in front of the bridge, but far enough in front that I didn't hit the bridge. And then the visual effects folks went ahead and make it look as if it actually crashed into the bridge and blew up.
Right. Yeah, it was an amazing set of events. Absolutely loved that one. And now, have you been involved in all the Fast and Furious movies?
I began on 5, and so I did 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 so far. And I've been the truck guy or the bus guy as my primary job. On days when we're not shooting that stuff, he sticks me in a car somewhere.
So 5 was in Brazil?
5 was supposed to be in Brazil.
Right.
And there were pieces of it that were really there, but we shot it in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool. Because the chase scene there, the final scene on that one was, again, phenomenal. It was just crazy. And I think it changed the whole feel for what the Fast and Furious movies were, because up until then, I mean, we kind of went into a different world when you're, bringing a safe down the street. And I assume you were part of all of that.
There's a fellow named Henry Kinji, and Henry and I were both driving Chargers coming out from the underground garage at the police department.
Yeah.
And we made a right turn onto the street, and we both were pulling this bank vault, and it was it was a heavy thing. It was made out of 1/4-inch steel tubing and plate, and so when it got going, it had a lot of momentum. It made us, it brought the tail out on both of our Chargers, and we were counter steering and adding throttle, all we could to try to pull the shot off. And the bank vault goes against the curb, and it flips, and it's taken out all these bollards along the curb, and that was a pretty lucky shot that we both managed not to crash our cars and pull that shot off.
Oh, it's a great shot. It really is. So, just huge for those of us who are big movie fans and love those big scenes. Fast and Furious, that whole franchise must just be like heaven for you, because I guess the only limitations are what your imagination could come up with, huh?
Well, that franchise for me, to have done 5 of them already, is probably the biggest single body of work in my career. So I'm very proud and extremely fortunate. And our second unit director on all these fast films, a guy named Spiro Rosatos, is just phenomenal when it comes to conceiving these hairballed ideas. I look at him and laugh and think he's crazy. And then we figure out how to do it. So, in Fast 5, we had 2 bank vaults that had a Chevy Blazer chassis, full size, the old K5 Blazer. It shortened, and it had a steering axle in the back as well. So, because these things were 8 foot square. So we had 2 drivable bank vaults. And let me tell you, driving a rusty steel box in July and August in Puerto Rico with no ventilation, it was just miserable hot. But then we also had 2 Freightliner FLD tractors that they removed the hoods of, cut the roofs off. So it's just, you're driving this convertible without a windshield, and they replaced the hood with a bank vault shell. One was canted a little to the left, one was canted a little bit to the right. And so all of the big impacts where all these police cars are flying off the causeway going over the water.
Yeah.
That was all me hitting those cars with one of the semis.
How about that?
Wow.
The in between, Henry again was driving the bank vault, on the connecting shots and stuff.
Right.
But that worked out pretty well. We were pretty proud of that.
Yeah, no, it's. I guess my only question, Mike, is why'd you give the money back to the actors? you had all the money in it, right?
We have to keep them employed, right?
Yeah, I guess. But those are just fantastic movies, fantastic scenes.
In addition to the incredible film work you've done, Mike, what's so exceptional about your career as well is you've had the opportunity to work with some fabulous drivers, just like yourself. Like the driver in the Formula One race car, when you did that amazing jump. Who was that driver?
It was Martin Ivanov, the guy that was driving the F1 car in the truck jump in England. He's done multiple Bond films. He's actually from the world's favorite place right now, Moscow, Russia.
Oh, wow.
But his father was the national champion rally racer, and then Ivan went on to be that, get all the same accolades his dad did rally racing in Russia. And he's a phenomenal talent. When you see some people's ability to drive, he's just got everything all of us people that call ourselves pros has, and then some, So, and that's why I chose him, because there weren't very many people that had the stunt skills that could also jump in a real Formula One car. Those are not easy to drive cars by any stretch of the imagination. It took like 5 guys from the Lotus team to just get it started.
Wow. That's amazing.
There's a whole process to that. And then I heard you say that my Guinness record, I think, is 83 feet 6 inches, but Guinness measures from the last axle. So that's actually where the trailer tire landed.
Okay.
The front tire landed 146 feet from the end.
That's even more impressive. Wow.
Yeah, I was doing 71 miles an hour when we left the ramp.
And it's definitely one of those things that don't try this at home.
Well, you know what we thought, again, I told you about the issue I had with the seat. But on impact, so truck trailers typically have these big rectangular rubber blocks on the back of the trailer so that when they back into loading docks, they don't hurt the trailer. Mm-hmm. So I put a brand new rubber block above each axle on the tractor as another cushion. But when that front end bottomed out, it blew those blocks out, and they were bolted in with at least 1/2-inch bolts, pretty stout stuff. Blew those right out and humped the frame rails. The engine broke through its mounts, and the only thing hit the ground with its oil pan and spewed oil underneath it. And the only thing that kept the engine kind of in the channel it belongs in was the hoses and stuff and electrical cables. But that frame was so trashed in ways I've never seen. Just the compression of it. It still steered, and the brakes still worked, so I was able to bring it to a nice gentle stop. But the impact was, I didn't realize it. I've jumped so many cars and pickup trucks and vans and stuff, and it's never that big of a deal. But the weight of that makes me wish I had paid more attention to physics class.
Oh, but that's not as exciting as driving.
No, but there was a lot of things you could learn in physics class that would have been helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we definitely want to talk more about that and what it goes into doing this with, especially semis. That's got to be a huge challenge. We have to go to break here. We're talking with truck stunt driver Mike Ryan, who set world records. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok. Kathy Decaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with truck stunt driver Mike Ryan, who has set some awesome records. His driving abilities are nothing short of amazing. Mike, you were talking about some of the stunts you've done. I was wondering, and I think our driver listeners would be interested too. What does it take to make a big rig a stunt truck?
Wow. Well, there's a lot of answers to that question.
Mm-hmm.
There's huge differences between a production car and a race car. There's some racy production cars with license plates, all the Ferraris and all that kind of stuff in the world. So they're designed as to have extremely high abilities on a road racing course. So in a stunt vehicle, if we're going to protect the driver from an impact, then the roll cage that gets put into the vehicle is really important to defend against where the intended impact is supposed to come from. So I was driving a city bus in Captain America 2 or 3 in Cleveland, Ohio. And one of my stunt buddies, the story was that he T-bones me right where the driver's seat is. And he was driving a big utilities truck, like a telephone pole line repair truck. And he had a pretty good clip. So we had 1-inch plate steel built into the side of the bus to protect me, plus a special seat, plus everything between the steel plate and me was heavily padded. And that kind of dissipated the hit. So I didn't feel it terribly. We often put in our own seat, our own racing harnesses. We will trick the brakes sometimes so that just the back wheels lock up if we want to slide it. If we're going to jump it, then we modify the suspension. There's just any number of things, and it can go on and on. When I jumped the Lotus F1 car in England with a tractor trailer that can bend in the middle, that seemed like a really bad idea on landing. If I didn't land perfectly straight, I might end up in a jackknife, or if a tire blew or an axle bent or wheel bent. So I was able to get some really custom made but heavy duty straps that I could do kind of X bracing between the trailer and the tractor to prevent it from being able to move left or right. Wanted it to be able to bend when the truck went up the ramp, but the trailer's still on level ground, so it could bend that way, but it didn't want it to bend the other way, because if I nosed in, having that trailer push the tractor might break the kingpin and be a mess. So again, we limited the amount of travel, and I think we did it enough that we did more than what the physics of the situation, whatever that energy was. I think we overcompensated with the straps, and as an end result, they protected me from any of that kind of thing and did their job well, and they were in great shape when we were finished. So a lot of involvement. I mean, I've had the good fortune of my father being an engineer, so I kind of grew up thinking about that kind of stuff. He was a nuclear engineer in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, at what began as the Manhattan Project. So, and that's really how we look at all of this stuff. Is driving is almost the last part of the job. It's all of the prep that goes into making any vehicle do what you need it to do, and to protect the driver from whatever is going to happen.
Absolutely. Now, I understand you have a 2,400 horsepower triple turbocharged semi that you use for hill climbs. I was looking at a video on that. That was pretty amazing.
And about 4,000 foot-pound of torque. So thanks to Freightliner's support and Michelin and folks like that, we had 18 years of racing semi-tractors, primarily in the Pikes Peak hill climb. So I think we have something like 14 class wins and 7 speed records on Pikes Peak.
Wow.
Then I was the first and only big truck, as far as I know, that was allowed in the Mount Washington hill climb in New Hampshire. which might actually be older than Pikes Peak. And then we took it to New Zealand twice for a thing they had called the Queenstown Gold Rush Hill Climb. So got 2 records and 2 wins there. So that was the last truck, the 2,400 horsepower one, was pretty much our 4th truck, or the 4th evolution of our trucks. I had 2 primary trucks, but one morphed into another, and well, both of them morphed into something, because you're always modifying them and trying to get them to improve their abilities. But yeah, I'm so proud of those trucks, and especially that last one. When drifting kind of first became a thing after Fast and Furious 1, if I were to go out and learn how to drift a car, who would have cared? But to drift a truck seemed like a pretty cool idea because nobody else was doing it. So there's a guy named Sam Hubinette that was one of the Formula Drift champions probably in the early 2000s. He had a good 5 or 6 year run. And Sam helped me at a local speedway that I was just at this past Saturday, learn to drift my truck. And we ended up shooting 3 drifting videos, kind of to emulate Ken Block, who has done all those Hoonigan videos. That my hat's off to that guy. He's just done an amazing job of marketing fancy driving and YouTube videos. And that, I think our first Size Matters Big Rig Drifting video had something like 4 million views in its first month. And the second one did pretty close to 4 million. And the third one, I think I did it for a couple of different companies, and somebody else handled the release of the video and the marketing. And I don't know how well it did, not near as good as the other 2. But anyhow, I'm super proud to have 3 videos out there.
Oh, it's really cool. Is it harder to drift a semi than a car? I would imagine.
There's a lot of different drift cars, so some are easier to do than others. Some are better at it than others. I was so comfortable in the truck. It's kind of funny. I can do things in a truck that I haven't tried to do in a car, so I feel kind of awkward getting into a car trying to do what I can kind of do one-handed in the truck and laugh and giggle while I'm doing it. So it's odd. I just got used to that comfortable shoe.
It's a specialized skill, though, I would imagine, isn't it? I can't imagine that everybody can say, oh, yeah, I can do that in a big rig if they've never done it.
Well, I got hired last October to go to Peru and drive Optimus Prime in the next Transformers film, which I think is 7. And Optimus is drifting down this mountain in Peru that was, it's higher than Pikes Peak by 5,000 feet, but the road was, the road part that we were working on was about the height of the summit of Pikes Peak. So it was, it just dwarfed the Rockies. I was kind of blown away. But this was a prequel, they call it. So this is early in the Transformer story.
Sure.
Okay.
So like when Transformer was a kid or something like that. So we had a 94 Freightliner cab over, 3-axle tractor with a 315 or 20 horse Cummins in it. And that was my supposed drift truck. So even with all the tricks and the modifications we could do, I couldn't really drift the truck because there wasn't enough horsepower or torque. So if you don't have, I could throw the tail end out and get it in a side slide by locking up the back brakes, but there wasn't enough throttle to pick it up and continue the drift. And drifting is really throttle steering your vehicle. So we were handicapped and there was just nothing I could do. And I was so frustrated and apologetic. But my counterpart in this business, it's kind of we're the last two guys that are the truck specialists, Jim Wilkie. Jim and I both tried. He was driving the bad guy truck and I was driving the good guy truck. And we both did all we could. And that it didn't seem like very much to us. We both shared that same frustration. So horsepower is the magic bullet.
Kind of a combination.
Yeah. So I don't know that anybody, unless they were on a slick, wet road or an icy road, could drift a stock semi-tractor very well for very far.
It's not something they probably would want to be doing.
I wouldn't recommend doing that on the highway. I mean, but even if a guy took his hot rodded, now when we had our Champ Truck Road Racing series, we took stock tractors, lightened them up as much as possible, put roll cages in them, and then tricked out the electronic control modules. And so we ended up with our two company trucks were both Freightliner Century class trucks with, I think they were Centuries. That might have been the other, anyhow, Freightliner conventionals with Series 60s engines in them. So they were about 750 horse. And I drifted the full Roval, they call it, the road course inside the oval at Charlotte Motor Speedway. But I was able to drift the infield road course pretty comfortably. So there was light enough weight and high enough horsepower and torque to make that happen. Saturday, I mentioned that I was at Irwindale Speedway with Dakota Similar, the CEO of XOS Trucks. And I'm sure nobody's heard of them before, but you can find XOS. You can find them online at xostrucks.com. They're one of the pioneers of electric semi trucks and electric parcel delivery vans. And they've been selling quite a few of the parcel delivery vans to the usual suspects, Amazon and UPS and folks like that. But I drove their first pre-production semi-tractor, which had Meritor's electric axles, I guess is how you would say that, an electric motor attached to a differential. So with two rear axles, both of them had electric motors on them. And this thing had, pretty big battery cells, but it hauled ass. I was so impressed with that truck. And if I had wanted to, I could have hung the tail out and probably been able to drift that on the drift course at Irwindale Speedway, which the Formula Drift guys call that the House of Drift.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. We have to go to break here. We're talking with world-class truck stunt driver Mike Ryan. This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. Stay tuned for more coming up. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit TightenTheLugNuts.com to order your copy today. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with truck stunt driver Mike Ryan. Mike, the hour has just flown by with all of your great stories. We just have a few minutes here. What is your next big project, and where can people see your videos and your work?
Well, my next big project is Fast and Furious 10, and I leave tomorrow to fly to Rome, Italy. And I'll be in Rome for 5 or 6 weeks, then up in northern Italy in a place called Turin, if I'm pronouncing that right. And then we go to Portugal. So dream come true. I've never been to either country, and they've been on the top of my bucket list. So I'm really excited. The bad news is we usually leave the hotel in the morning before it's daylight, and we don't get back until it's dark. But So, and we'll probably start off working 5-day weeks, but it won't be long before it turns into 6-day, 12-hour extravaganzas. But I'm super anxious to go. And as far as seeing my work, YouTube, Mike Ryan 777 is a very underkept, what do they call that? Your YouTube TV, YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So I don't maintain it very well, but there's a whole lot of stuff under Mike Ryan 777. MikeRyanMotorsports.com. You could see a lot of our racing stuff. We were able to go 231 miles an hour out the back door, but our one-way record back in 2004, I think, was 225.675 miles an hour at Bonneville. So that's a highlight in my career that I feel super lucky to have been involved in. Pikes Peak, we ran that from 1995 to 2016, and 97 to 16 was in a Freightliner of one sort or another. So another just huge blessing to get their sponsorship and support. And what a great working relationship. Seems like I'm going to get involved with the marketing at XOS Trucks. They've really done a lot. It's so amazing to see it come from nothing to what it is today, and it's hardly on the market yet. So pretty excited about that. But trucks just by default have become my career, and it's one that I'm really proud of.
Well, you do some incredibly exciting things with big rigs, so you can't get boring, that's for sure.
No, and I feel really lucky. My younger brother, Joe, has been an over-the-road trucker for 3 or 4 decades now. And I think he's something like 3.5 million accident-free miles. So,
very cool.
Amazing to see what the real folks have to go through and what they really do. And Joe's got skills that I'll never have.
Yes, drivers are an amazing group. The endurance, the dedication, the hard work they put in, the number of hours, it's really amazing. And our country owes them a debt because it wouldn't run without them. It really takes a special person to take on the kind of miles that drivers do. No doubt about that. Mike, thank you so very much for being with us. This has been a real treat for our drivers, and I've had a lot of fun talking to you. We've been talking with Mike Ryan. You've been listening to TNCRadio.live. This is the Truckers Network radio show. Stay tuned for the Evening Surge coming up. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.